Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. This video is about key parts in Romans that prove that faith without works is dead. But to help you understand those parts, I'm going to read Hebrews 11. Now, in popular culture, no one knows who wrote Hebrews, but it's often attributed to Paul, though there's some controversy over this. Nonetheless, the chapter is titled Faith in Action. Again, the title is Faith in Action. And it starts off by explaining to you what faith is, which is something that a lot of people who argue that faith without works magically delivers, it's something that they don't do. Okay, faith in action. Now, faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance in what we do not see. So what is faith, right? It is confidence in what we hope for and assurance. The word being used here is assurance in what we do not see. By faith, for example, I made over 15,000 videos, knowing that doing God's work is enough. And even if no one saw any of those videos, my intention was for them to see, and it was embarking on the highest martial art path with martial arts, with videos, with a superior interpretation of Scripture, what have you. So faith needs to be in action, or it's not action. Or it's not faith. And that is what Hebrews is about. In Paul's letters, he says that they're saved by faith and not the works of the law specifically. He's not saying that you can have faith without works. He's saying that if you observe the law just to observe the law without truly believing in God, that you're not going to go to heaven, basically. This is what the ancients were commended for. By faith, we understand that the universe was formed by God's command, so that what is seen was not made out of what is visible. By faith, Abel brought God a better offering than what Cain did. By faith, he was commended for righteousness, when God spoke well of his offerings. And by faith, Abel still speaks even though he is dead. Okay, so again, in the story of Cain and Abel, why was Abel's fruit desired by God? Because he truly had faith and he bore the fruit of righteousness. The story isn't literal. It's about bearing the fruit of righteousness versus bearing the fruit of envy and jealousy, what was stored up in Cain's heart. And so by faith, Abel is part of the spirit of righteousness that will always speak even after the human race goes extinct, if it ever goes extinct, which is not so important, because when you're cut off from God, your state is miserable. And clearly in comparison to eternal pleasure and eternal righteousness that comes from a true faith that will bear fruit, because that is the nature of true faith. By faith, Enoch was taken from his life so that he did not experience death. He could not be found because God had taken him away. For before he was taken, he was commended as one who pleased God. And without faith, it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him. So again, just to talk to God and to truly try to talk to God, one has to believe that God exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him, who have a zeal, a passion for seeking God and being right with God in order to ask God for anything, in order to talk to God and to explain things to God. By faith, Noah, when warned about things not yet seen, in holy fear built an ark to save his family. By his faith, he condemned the world and became heir of the righteousness that is in keeping with faith. So notice he's talking about things that they did. What Abel did. What Noah did. And notice there's a bunch of people who are examples. So if all throughout history people bore fruit through faith, people did works and deeds through faith, why on earth would you not be expected to? You are. Because the kingdom of heaven is not a matter of talk, but of power. And the Spirit of God gives us sound judgment, discipline, power. He gives us what we need to do the work of God. The Spirit demands that people do the work of God. By faith, Abraham, when called to go to a place he would later receive as his inheritance, obeyed and went. Right? The faith led to obedience. Even though he did not know where he was going. By faith, he made his home in the promised land like a stranger in a foreign country. He lived in tents, as did Isaac and Jacob, who were heirs with him of the same promise. For he was looking forward to the city with foundations, whose architect and builder is God. He was not looking to find his life in America or any other nation on the planet. He was looking to find the heavenly city with God. And we'll get to that in a second here. And by faith, even Sarah, who was past childbearing age, was enabled to bear children because she considered him faithful who had made the promise. And so from this one man, and he as good as dead, came descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and as countless as the sand on the seashore. All these people were still living by faith when they died. They did not receive the things promised. They only saw them and welcomed them from a distance, admitting that they were foreigners and strangers on earth. So were the offspring of Abraham people who are commonly accepted on earth? Or were they like aliens on earth? Were they like strangers on earth? Were they strangers to people, foreign to the cultures of the people who are of this world? Foreign to the cultures of the churches who are established by people who only allow churches that are of this world? Think about it. People who say such things show that they are longing for a country of their own. If they had been thinking of the country they had left, they would have had opportunity to return. Instead, they were longing for a better country, a heavenly one. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared a city for them. By faith, Abraham, when God tested him, offered Isaac as a sacrifice. He who had embraced the promises was about to sacrifice his one and only son, even though God had said to him, "It is through Isaac that your offspring will be reckoned." Abraham reasoned that God could even raise the dead, and so, in a manner of speaking, he did receive Isaac back from death. So Abraham followed God no matter what. But when he thought about, hey, why does he want me to offer Isaac as a sacrifice? He said, well, he's God. He's going to keep his promise one way or another, even if he has to raise Isaac back from the dead, what have you. So he said, hey, he can raise him back from the dead, so I'm going to do that. And he's going to do it anyway because he follows God. And so in a manner of speaking, he did receive Isaac back from death, in a manner of speaking. By faith, Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau in regard to their future. So let's go back to the heavenly city. In verse 16, they were longing for a better country, a heavenly one. I'm longing for a better woman than the females I see, a woman who obeys God through me. Therefore, a woman whose heart is pure and has the kingdom of heaven in her heart. I'm longing for a better place than America in any state that it's ever been, in any state that it ever will be in. And that goes for every nation on the planet. My kingdom is not of this world. So again, by faith, Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau in regard to their future. By faith, Jacob, when he was dying, blessed each of Joseph's sons and worshipped as he leaned on the top of his staff. By faith, Joseph, when his end was near, spoke about the exodus of the Israelites from Egypt and gave instructions concerning the burial of his bones. By faith, Moses' parents hid him for 3 months after he was born because they saw he was no ordinary child and they were not afraid of the king's edict. By faith, Moses, when he had grown up, refused to be known as the son of Pharaoh's daughter. He chose to be mistreated along with the people of God rather than to enjoy the fleeting pleasures of sin. And so it is with me. I refuse to just be a brain-surgeon son who has lots of money and enjoys life. I chose to be persecuted, which would by default affect my family and cause me to have problems with my family, what have you. By faith, forget the fleeting pleasures of sin. The top martial artist ever chose a morally precise path that is greater than mere worldly stuff, and I used to live in a mansion that is now worth $5 million in Saratoga. He regarded disgrace for the sake of Christ as of greater value than the treasures of Egypt, because he was looking ahead to his reward. He who comes from afar, not short-sighted, seeing the bigger picture, a certain falcon vision. By faith he left Egypt, not fearing the king's anger. He persevered because he saw him who is invisible. By faith he kept the Passover and the application of blood, so that the destroyer of the firstborn would not touch the firstborn of Israel. By faith the people passed through the Red Sea as on dry land, but when the Egyptians tried to do so, they were drowned. Notice it was the people, countless people, not just prophets, people. By faith they passed through the Red Sea, and of course it is figurative, but what they're referring to requires faith nonetheless. Okay. By faith the walls of Jericho fell after the army had marched around them for 7 days. By faith the prostitute Rahab, because she welcomed the spies, was not killed with those who were disobedient. Going to verse 32, which is a verse that is very important. And what more shall I say? I do not have time to tell about Gideon, Barak, Samson, and Jephthah, about David and Samuel and the prophets, who through faith conquered kingdoms, administered justice, and gained what was promised, who shut the mouths of lions, quenched the fury of the flames, and escaped the edge of the sword, whose weakness was turned to strength, and who became powerful in battle and routed foreign armies, and who became powerful in battle. And notice he's using this as an example to prove that people are saved by faith when it comes in action. When it's true faith, it's proven by action. Using, again, one of the examples he made, when the people passed through the Red Sea, okay, if they said they believed and they refused to pass through the Red Sea, would they still go to heaven? No. That faith had to come with action. With these guys who became powerful in battle, if they had lost the faith and it interfered with their fighting technique, they would have died. They wouldn't have routed foreign armies like those who are in rebellion against God, who have cut off from God, from the city of God, from heaven, from Jerusalem with God, what have you. Very important verse 34. They quenched, verse 32 through 34, very important. So let's go over this again real quickly here. And what more shall I say? I do not have time to tell about Gideon, Barak, Samson, and Jephthah, about David and Samuel, and the prophets, who through faith conquered kingdoms, administered justice, and gained what was promised, who shut the mouth of lions, quenched the fury of the flames, and escaped the edge of the sword, spirit, whose weakness was turned to strength, and who became powerful in battle and routed foreign armies. And that power was in their spirit. Spirit, to spear, which is something that could be expressed through outdoor sparring, at least until my flesh dies, and other people, they're outside the divine order, so they can't do it without obeying God through me. Women received back their dead, raised to life again. There are others who were tortured, refusing to be released so that they might gain an even better resurrection. Some faced jeers and flogging, and even chains and imprisonment. They were put to death by stoning. Or another version of it says they were put to the test by stoning. They were sawed in two. They were killed by the sword. They went about in sheepskins and goatskins, destitute, persecuted, and mistreated. The world was not worthy of them. The word used here is worthy, like trustworthy. The world was not worthy, just like they're not trustworthy. They're not worthy to continue to do God's work after my flesh dies and the die is cast there. They were put to the test definitively, and they definitively failed. The divine verdict is there. Anyone who wants to go to heaven must rally and obey God through me, and no one should reproduce. The word used there again is worthy. The world was not worthy of them. They wandered in deserts and mountains, living in caves and in holes in the ground. These were all commended for their faith, yet none of them received what had been promised, since God had planned something better for us, so that only together with us they would be made perfect, referring to the resurrection. So those who truly believe in God, they plan their whole life for the afterlife. They don't let their career or their family being put in danger or orders from the military or FBI or whoever, they don't let that get in the way. But the inhabitants of the earth at this time, they all have let that get in the way. They're doing what they think they should do instead of what God told them to do through me. The divine verdict is on the lips of a king, not the worms who rebelled against the top martial arts ever possible, the greatest king ever possible. Christ, the Son of God, making the distinction between God as God and the King of Kings as King, me, the King of Kings. Thank you.